Now we are going to talk about handling the forms in PHP. Before we do that, it's very important to know the different parts of a HTML form. So let's see an example of an HTML form. Okay, let's create a new file, form.php, and let's create an HTML form, HTML, and this would have a head. I don't know, title would be form. And then we have a body, and inside the body we have a form, and that form has multiple inputs. Here I have created a very simple form to show you the different parts. Each HTML form has different parts and it's very important to know them. Each form has an action and a method. Then it has one or multiple inputs with different types, and then it has a submit button. In order to submit this form, the action is where the form is going to be submitted to. So this action can be the current URL. In that case, then just leave it empty, or you can send it to another file. For example, I want this form to be handled by handle.php file, or I can send it to another URL completely. For example, I can submit my form to Google. I can write Google for the action, so my form will be submitted to Google, and it is possible. So for example, I can say https google.com, and Google gets a type text with the name of Q, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. The name should be Q, so this would be the search query. So right now I can simply submit this form. Before we do that, let's talk about method as well. Method can be get or post. Get or post. In very simple terms, get and post have many differences, but in very simple terms, if the method is get, you can see the inputs in the URL as URL parameters. But if it's post, you can't see it there. This is just the simplest difference between them. For example, if I go to something like google.com and then I see search q equals to something, then I can see that these parameters have been submitted to Google by a GET request. Or if I couldn't see these parameters, then I can guess, okay, it was a POST request if there was a form. Otherwise, if it's not a form, not all the requests are forms. This can also be a GET request, but if there are no parameters, if there are parameters, if I am submitting my form and it goes to a page like this where I cannot see the parameters, I can guess that it might be POST. Otherwise, if I see the parameters like Q equals this, then I can guess that it's probably GET. So for now, let's pass GET here because I want to submit my form to Google as a query before we go to our browser, because I want to send it to Google. Google is actually handling the data that they are going to search in another page called search. So my form should be submitted to google.com search, and with this input, let's see if it works. Let's go to the browser, refresh the page. Here I have a form. Let's say I want to search for PHP. I submit the form, and as you can see, it goes to google.com search q PHP, and it can bring all the data. And since I'm in Turkey, at first it showed me the Turkish information, but when I change it to English, then it shows me the English result. Now let's go back to my form and refresh the page. I want to handle this form on my own file, so I'm going to change it to handle.php. Now let's go back to our file. At the moment it's a GET request to Google. Right now I do not want to send this to Google. I want my own file to handle this form. So I'm going to change the action to a file that I'm going to create, handle.php. At the moment I do not have the file here, but I will create it and I will tell you how we can handle this form in our PHP file. The other things that you need to know about a form before we get to the PHP part is that each input has a name and a value. At the moment, the value, we didn't specify any default value, so the value would be the thing that user specifies. Otherwise, I could also have a default value like this. The name and the value are going to be passed to PHP like a key value in an array. We are going to see that. Just be aware that each input has a name and a value. We do not care about place order or type of an input because these are just for the HTML part in order to format it and show it to the user. The two important attributes for us are name and value. And now let's go to the HTML part and let's change the name to name. And the value by default would be AMIR and the method is get. So let's look at our file again. In the browser, nothing has changed. The default value is AMIR. If we submit this, it is going to go to handle.php. At the moment, I do not have any handle.php, but I'm going to create it because the method is get. We can see the name and the value of our input. Let me change it to post to show you how it would look like. If I pass post here, we will not be able to see this name and value in the URL. So let's go back to our browser, refresh the page and submit it again. As you can see, it has gone to handle.php, but I cannot see any name and value and parameters in my URL. That's the simplest difference between get and post. Let's go back to our file. Let's change it to get. Now let's create handle.php. In order to be able to process this information, we need to use two super global variables in PHP, which are get and post. If the form method was get, then all the inputs will be passed to this variable, and if the method was post, all the inputs will be passed to this variable. So for now, since our forms method is get, we are going to get all these values from here. The very first thing that we need to check is to check if the value is set, meaning that the value has been passed to us. So let's use the if is set function that we have learned. We can say if is set get the, now here we need to pass the input name. Here the name was name because we wanted to check for the name of the person. If it has been set, then we can say echo name has been set. Otherwise, echo name has not been set. So let's see the result. If I go to my browser and now submit the form, it would tell me that name has been set because there is an input with the name. But if I change it, if I remove this and I run the code again, it would tell me that name has not been set because there is no name here. Now in my file, I want to get the value of this name. If it has been set, I want to say name equals to get name, and then say echo hello name and hello name. But if the name has not been passed, I could say hello stranger. Okay, now I want to say hello stranger if the name was not passed. So now let's go back to the browser and let's see the result. Now at the moment the name is not passed. If I refresh the page, it would say hello stranger. If I pass the name equals to AMIR and run it, it would tell me hello AMIR. I personally would like to use empty here rather than is set, because right now if we pass a value that is empty, here we would be getting hello. because the name is not passed and the name is empty, but I want to make sure that the name has been passed. Otherwise, since I don't know the name I'm going to echo hello stranger. So let's see the result is set, and then let's change it to empty to see the difference. Let's go back to browser and run the code again. Here, if I pass the name but I leave it empty, I'm going to get hello because the name has been passed but it's empty. Now let's change it to empty from is set if it's not empty. And now if I go to my browser and run the code, name is not empty, it's going to tell me hello stranger. But since the name was empty, it's going to tell me hello stranger, and if I pass something, it's going to tell me hello AMIR. Here I've been passing this here, but if I go to my form.php and write something like else, and here it's going to tell me hello this. That's how easy you can handle a form. Let's change it to post to see if we can get the post as well. Here I go to my form, change the method to post, and I'll come back here. If I check for get, obviously it's going to be empty, so I need to change it to post. Now if I go to my browser, now refresh the page, even if I pass some name here, it's going to tell me that hello stranger because this is a get value. The name should be passed by post, so I cannot write the post values in the URL, so I have to go to form, submit it from there. So when I go to form, I say like, I don't know, PHP and or hello world. Let's change it to hello world and submit the form. It's going to tell me undefined index name. That's interesting. Let's go there. On line 4, let's go to our file. I need to change that to post as well in order to get the value from post. So let's go back to the browser and see if it has been fixed. Let me refresh the page. It's going to tell me, are you sure you want to resubmit the form? Yes. And now my file has been able to handle the form. And here, if I go back to my form and I write something else here, I will get the result. That's how easy you can handle forms in PHP. The last thing that I'm going to tell you about the forms is that the forms are the easiest way to hack a website. So be very careful. You need to sanitize and validate your data before doing anything else, because somebody can come here and literally pass some PHP data in the form and you would be handling them in your code. Always use data validation and sanitizing your data techniques. We are going to talk about them in this course, so keep watching and make sure that your forms would be secure. Now, this is the end of form section. We have talked about a lot of things, different parts of a form and how to handle posts and get requests in PHP. Now, let's go to the next topic.